y'all hear us now?
Sibilance.
I see it moving.
Yeah.
What the hell happened? We had to restart everything from that alert, man. We're going to go about 15 minutes over to make up for that blackout. Did you see much on this? What did you think about this Trump summit? You're not a huge Trump fan, right?
Man, my statement always about Trump is that he's going to break all the things that need to be broken.
Say the parable that you said about him. Your opinion.
Well,
China, bull in a China.
Yeah, this goes back to the beginning. Of during the election period, I felt like Hillary was going to be your grandmother in a china shop. She was going to protect everything, the status quo, keep things the way they had been during the Obama administration. And then I felt like Trump is going to come in and he's going to be a bull in that same china shop. He's going to break a whole bunch of things, the relationships, he's going to do it his way, and he's going to break a bunch of stuff. Now, I will agree that a certain percentage of things actually need to be broken, and that's a great thing that he's going to create and cause. But I think there's a whole bunch of things that didn't need to be broken that he's going to break just because he's Donald Trump. So I don't like that. However, if I try to stay positive and look at our future and hope for something good to come out of it, those things that didn't need to be broken that are being broken by him are going to have to be rebuilt by someone from scratch. So if there was any fat on those things, if there was any excess budget or laws that didn't need to be in place, that next administration is at least going to be starting from a little bit more of a ground zero. So that's my opinion on Trump. I don't love him.
So here's my point. I like what's going on with North and South Korea. Am I a Trump fan? Not personally a Trump fan, but I lean libertarian. I really don't like being. I don't pledge an allegiance to a party. I like to think for myself. But I lean libertarian, so I'm a social liberal and a fiscal conservative. I'm not quite actually as libertarian as a lot of my libertarian friends. I do think there should be some welfare programs. I do think government should be involved a little more than I think a lot of libertarians would say. Here's the thing about Trump. I don't like the way he carries himself. I think he says some moronic things. But one thing that I do assume about him, and I don't know if this is true, but from everything I've seen in my 30-something years of being alive, I think at the very least, Trump's at least good at making deals, right? So he looks dumb in the public's eye. He's divisive, right? I can go on a list of things that I don't like about Trump, but I still think he's good at making deals as a businessman. And I think that him being good at making deals, I have to, as much as I kind of beat up on him a little bit in previous episodes, especially when we did the immigration reform, I was really tough on how he handled the omnibus bill. I will say that he seems to be putting his I'm good at making deals to work.
Well, if we're going to talk about Trump on that level, then, first and foremost, I think it's easy to be a good maker of deals if you are the guy with the biggest checkbook at the table. Mm-hmm. So I think Trump making deals as a successful businessman, I don't think he comes into a mutual table when he is the leader of his corporation to negotiate. I think he has an incredible advantage in each one of those situations. Now, I'm not saying he didn't earn that advantage, but I think that if you have the biggest checkbook, that doesn't necessarily make you a great negotiator. It makes everybody that comes to the table with you.
Jimmy Carter was president, and he was an entrepreneur and ran on that, and he didn't do anything great as president. And I will say that, as far left as I lean, I do get a little frustrated at times with the left where they act like Trump can't do anything good.
Yes.
But I got frustrated at the right because they did the same thing with Obama. And that's really what I love. That's really why I was saying, dude, let's have a podcast where we talk for the middle people. Because if you look at it, at least 50+% of the nation is in the middle. 50+% of the nation is not a left or a right, And so what about the majority of the nation that says, man, I don't really love our Republican or Democratic candidate? Or there's tons of people that think that they're in bed with the same people. They're accepting money from centralized banking, they're accepting money from oil companies and Wall Street and everybody else. And so there's tons of people that go, man, I think it's all a big smoke and mirrors. I think it's all a big facade.
And that's exactly what I think right now if you look at the North Korea, South Korea summit, and you see some things that you could really celebrate. However, if you really take a step back from that and look at what has been going on and what the cycle of events are, you have Kim Jong Wonky Wonk. I never can say his name right because I don't watch the news all the time, but the reality is, he starts making a missile party, and he's sending missiles into the ocean. He's doing intercontinental. He develops all this stuff, and what happens? The world responds, and they're like, oh crap, there's a little crazy man in North Korea that he might possibly do something devastating, and everybody is looking at him saying, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? We have to avoid war. And then, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you know what? I decided I want to send some people to the Olympics, and that changes everything. I mean, literally 5 months before that, it's bombs going to be going off anywhere. And now, all of a sudden, he seems to appear open to the conversation about negotiation, about not talking about nuclear arming or de-escalating. It's not de-escalating, but stepping down the amount of nuclear weapons. And everybody gets excited about that because now, oh, look at the progress that we're making. Everybody's taking credit for it. And then they're going to start, I guarantee you, the next step is they're going to start throwing money at them. And they're going to start doing all of this, giving them opportunities and resources. Yeah. And at the end of the day, Trump and America are going to walk back and say, hey, look how great we were. We solved the crisis over there. And Kim Jong's going to be sitting there with Dennis Rodman. Look what I did to America. I make them so upset. They go all crazy. Then they call and they offer me money. I don't know what language this is. I now count all the money. Look at this, Dennis. So that's a really terrible analogy. But it's not far from what is possible. He was making all the noise. All of a sudden, we came in and said, stop making that noise. And guess what? Oh, you're stopping? Here's some money. Sounds like a brilliant strategy as far as I'm concerned.
It's diplomatic. I will say they were picking on him in the news about his $6,000 a night room.
Yeah.
And I was like, we're talking about a dictator that was about to nuke the world, and we're upset that we're giving him a $6,000 a night room. How many people are American politicians getting $6,000 and $7,000 and $8,000 and $9,000 rooms on tax money budgets? And we made a big deal about that.
Oh yeah.
I don't know, man. I'm afraid to speak too soon because like you said 5 months ago, this was a whole different landscape.
Absolutely.
So you're afraid to just jump in and be Captain Optimistic, like, oh, dude, world peace, it's happening. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm afraid to speak too soon. It's encouraging. It's encouraging to see two countries that hated each other for my entire lifespan, kind of kiss and make up. And then it's encouraging also to see that Kim Jong-un seems to be working toward denuclearization, which is, exactly what we want. But I don't know, man. Who knows what the next 3 to 6 months will look like? Trump says that he thinks they might need to have another summit or two. He said he doesn't have to call that, but then Trump also said eventually we may have him in the White House, as a guest.
Kim Jong is going to be our new president? Sounds good.
I think it was that Seth Rogen movie. Let's quit giving Trump all the credit. I think it was Seth Rogen and James Franco with that movie, that real controversial.
I really did see that movie.
That was actually pretty funny.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. You want to see what Gray had to say?
All right.
So I thought I'd weigh in on the summit meeting with President Trump and Kim Jong-un. Definitely interesting, definitely historic. I'm definitely not one of Donald Trump's fans, but I hope that this will happen and it will go the way that everyone wants it to, with, the fairy tale North Korea merging back into South Korea and one unified Korea. We'll see how that goes. I think it's also important to consider the implications of some of the things that could happen in terms of, if that happens, how the U.S. will respond. If we're going to pull all of our troops out of South Korea, that leaves a very dangerous gap for China to start moving in and taking control of a lot more territory in the Pacific, maybe not physically, but also just having a bigger presence over there. So it's important to understand that there are implications in terms of keeping the U.S. over in that region of the world and keeping that stable. So I think that this is a great first step into bringing a unified Korea together, which would be amazing and it'd be historic to see. Seeing families reunited after 50 plus years. I hope everything goes according to plan. Again, not a fan of Donald Trump, but also hope that that's not just a Donald Trump thing. I hope that he can do that just for again, moving forward with global relations. So again, I think there's been good progress made. It'll be good to see where it goes from here. So that's all I got.
Danny, is it fair to say you're a little more of a Trump fan than the two of us, probably?
Man, I'm an American fan.
Okay.
I want what's good for this country to be good. I want Donald Trump to win at everything he does, because if he wins, we win. That being said, does he say some buffoon, just some outlandish buffoonery? Absolutely, he does, and I have a hard time swallowing that. But I can't be an American and not hope that that we grow as a country and that we become stronger. I think it's awesome. I think it's historic. I think it's historic.
You think it's going to stay? I'm just scared to be optimistic.
Well, everybody is scared to be optimistic, and I get it, because everybody feels like Trump has a trigger, a quick trigger. But you saw Trump, and to Scott's point when he was talking about Trump's good at making deals, you saw Trump walk away from it. He walked away from the summit, and then Kim Jong-un and the North Koreans did a lot of scrambling to get him back to the table.
You think that was just a negotiation tactic?
Of course I do. I mean, it's straight out of his book, Art of the Deal. And then Kim Jong-un and the North Koreans did a lot of scrambling to get him back.
You might want to hear what you just said.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But I just want America to be fixed. I don't care if it's a Democrat or if it's a Republican. I don't care. I don't understand these people that just wish ill on the president, like just want him to fail. I heard Bill Maher say the other day that he hopes that a recession comes. He hopes that a recession comes because that'll make Trump look bad. To someone like Bill Maher, a recession's not going to hurt him. He may stop going out to eat 6 times a week instead of 7 times a week or something like that. But to the average American,
I don't know, cost of living's high out there. He might have a little 300 square foot apartment.
Donate millions of dollars to Obama's campaign and stuff. Yeah. But which it's his right. But I just think a recession would hurt a lot of people. And to your point, you hate when the real leftists just go after him. Just to go after him.
I hate it when the rightists went after Obama.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Hate the our country. I hate that there's a shooting, and instead of talking about armed guards and instead of talking about metal detectors, we just go straight to gun rights. We've been conditioned to do that. We've been psychologically programmed.
Or what race was the person that got shot?
Let me look for some memes because this happened, and we talked about it last episode, right? A lot of times it's smoke and mirrors intentionally provided.
Essentially, black man got shot. By a cop.
Turn it into a race debate.
Yeah, it's a race
thing.
Why can't I hear
what bathrooms are people using now? And you got some dude. I'm not going to take my kids in Target anymore.
Yeah.
And it's like it's always that, and then but then the pocketbook comes out, and Democrats and Republicans get together like best friends.
They cinch right up.
Okay, we'll give billions of dollars to warfare as long as I get that program I want.
Man, if you look at the economy, the economy's had a pretty strong turnaround. And
well, the big question
the Democrats hate it.
The big question is that because of Trump.
Well, the Democrats are going to say these are just policies that were enacted by Obama that have finally come to fruition.
Say an alternate truth when there's a Republican guy, and the Republicans are going to say an alternate truth when there's a Democratic guy.
And
there's nobody sticking up for the people except for UNpartygarage.
That's right.
UNpartygarage.
That's right.
We are standing up for the people.
I remember.
Hey, let's go. I'm going to let Gray just get a crazy debut because I've got some videos. I got plenty of videos, but I don't think I'm going to have time to play them all. But since I'm already on Gray, I'm going to let him play his abortion piece too because he's usually got a good opinion. So let's see what Gray has to say about abortion. We'll jump into that segment. And just to let you guys know real quick, no, let's play it because you're on my screen.
Well,
What's up, Matt, Danny, and Scott?
Hope you guys. What's up, UnParty Garage with Matt, Danny, and Scott? Hope you guys are doing okay. I just wanted to give you my 2 cents and weigh in on the topic of abortion. Matt told me to keep it short and sweet, less than a minute, so I'll try to do my best with that. This is definitely one of the more philosophical points of contention politically, as far as what people believe, and I think it all comes down to essentially personhood, when you define person, a person, and you see the cliche, abortion is murder. Again, that kind of goes back to that point. Again, we're along that development stage is something considered a person, because a sperm can develop into a zygote, which eventually turns into a full-fledged human. So again, there are different stages of it. So we're along that stage in the timeline of development. You consider the development of all those cells a person. I personally believe it's somewhere, in the first trimester where the fetus can survive outside the womb. But again, it just depends on who you talk to. So I'll kind of pose the question back to you guys, is where you would define personhood, and where it is okay to terminate that living collection of cells. And obviously, hopefully you guys will get to the point of with rape and incest and the more nuanced, tricky cases with abortion, and hopefully you guys will come up with some interesting points. So yeah, looking forward to the podcast. Hope you guys are doing well, and can't wait to hear it.
So,
Hey, Gray, thank you for your input, man.
So let's say this, first of all, I don't think we need to go to those tricky nuances where you go, hey, a 13-year-old got raped and she might die giving birth to a handicapped baby that might not live more than 7 weeks. Is abortion wrong or right then? Because I think the average person would say that's okay. Let's start off with the extremes. Our formula has always been the way we like to dissect things. We like to go to both extremes and go way out there and say, what's this really, really big extreme say on this side and this really big extreme say on this side, and then what's the average American thing? So your extremes are this, right? There are people that say it's not about biology, it's about when the person has actually formed their own individual personality. So one extreme would say you might be 9 or 10 months old before you're even a person, so to speak. Not biologically speaking, but just in the context of your consciousness and you're a conscious human being. The far extreme on the other side is kind of like the Catholic Church at a time. You use condoms and you're playing God, and that's just as bad as abortion because you're killing the potential of a future baby. So that's your extremes, right? So you got people way over here and you got people way over here. What's the average person thinking? Really what it comes down to is where do you define life? So let's jump to Scott. Scott, what do you think?
Well, I'm going to pull a Danny here, and I apologize in advance. But did you just say in the extreme of the abortion issue that 9 months after birth is still considered an abortion?
No, there's people that believe that even after a baby is born, there's people that believe that even after a baby is born, it's not a person because you can't remember those years and you don't have a personality. There's no individualistic side to you. It's not my belief. It's the extreme.
But what I would say on the issue of abortion, I think, and you can tell me because I just want to be on the same page here.
Okay, we could say third trimester. We could say third trimester.
I'm just saying, like once the baby is.
No, I'm telling you, there are whack jobs out there that believe you can kill a 6-month baby and you're not killing a person. That's what I'm saying. That's
news to me. That's
you didn't
beyond.
Know that? Okay.
That's like
no, that's
for
out
me,
there.
Partial birth abortion is the extreme.
Okay.
We
can start there. We can go from condoms to the day before they give delivery, before they deliver the baby. That's fine.
In the abortion definition.
Yeah.
But I would say this. I spent a lot of time today because I knew we were talking about this, and I actually looked at it a couple of times this week. And the question that I wanted to have some sort of certainty about was, at what point is it legal in the United States of America to have an abortion? And before I tell you what I found today, I would like to ask you guys what you found. And so we're not talking about whether it's right, whether it's wrong, any of those kind of things right now, but based on your understanding of the laws as it relates to abortion, where do you think it becomes, you're allowed to have an abortion? Not whether it's right, but just based on what you know.
When is it legal?
Yeah.
I don't. First, there's some national laws and some state laws.
Right.
So I don't know that there's a blanket answer. I mean, it depends on where you live.
And that is a true statement. I mean, a lot of the laws from Roe v. Wade made it where you can't say that somebody can't have an abortion on a state level, and Roe v. Wade made it on a national level where everybody has to have the ability to do it. But your kind of looks to me are exactly how I felt today when I was looking for an answer to say, when is it not allowed to have an abortion? And everything that I read seems to leave a lot of it into the hands of the individual doctor to determine the viability of that child.
So every case
fetus.
is circumstantial. Is
It
kind of
it really seemed to be that, and that was shocking to me. I understood.
you thought there was going to be a law that says no matter what, after 8.5 months,
Yeah.
you can't.
And I think most people, if you ask them, would say, yes, there is a definitive time.
Yeah.
And they don't know what it is, but they would say there is a definitive time. But I looked everywhere. And
But you're speaking legalities right now.
I'm speaking legalities, not moralities, not whether your faith says it's
Not
right
biology,
to do or not.
yeah.
But yeah, please.
Okay, so, and it's been a long time, so forgive me because I'm going to mess this up. Roe v. Wade doesn't talk about a woman's right to choose. All right, Roe v. Wade answers the constitutional question, or tries to answer the constitutional question of when is it safe to have an abortion. So Blackwood, the guy who wrote the defining opinion of Roe v. Wade, brought it not as a woman's right to choose, but as more of a doctor issue, to your point.
Right.
When is the fetus viable? The state of Texas that brought the argument, their big push was when they said, why are you saying it's up to the state? Why does the state have a dog in this fight? And the state said, Texas said that, well, first and foremost, we care about the woman's health. And then second most, we care about the fetus, okay? And the rights of the fetus, so on and so forth. Well, Blackwood actually went to the Mayo Clinic and got with doctors and stuff like that, and threw out personhood altogether, and made it about when is it safe to have an abortion. And what they came up with was the trimester effect.
Right.
Okay? Or theory, however they put it. The doctors at the Mayo Clinic and all the research said that in the first trimester, it is safe to have an abortion. It's safe for the woman to have an abortion. They also said that in the first trimester that the fetus isn't anywhere near personhood.
Right.
Okay? The second trimester, they said the state has a viable opinion on whether or not it's healthy for the woman, right? And in the third trimester, they said the state absolutely has the right to dictate terms and say that you can't have an abortion in the third trimester. But what made it a nationwide issue was the 14th Amendment and the right to due process. Texas was trying to say, we make that call. And these are why we take those calls, or we make those calls. And the Supreme Court said, it's not your right to make that call in a safe zone. And because they were pulling together the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, the Ninth Amendment, and the 14th Amendment, they were giving it some shroud of privacy. To your point, condoms. You know, Connecticut was trying to make it illegal to use a condom for whatever reason. And the Supreme Court came back and said, while the Constitution doesn't specifically say privacy, you know, that there is a such thing as a privacy, that in those passages of these amendments, there is inherent privacy.
Right.
You know, and so it was more about the baby's health and the woman's health and not about a woman's right to choose, which all got changed in '92 with Planned Parenthood versus Casey. And that's where shit just went off the rails.
And in 2003, they kind of went away from the trimester effect.
That's with Planned Hood and Casey.
Right.
You're right.
So let me.
And gave states the right to over regulate what they want to do, as long as they don't create an unsuitable environment for someone, blocking them from trying to do what's okay.
Matt.
So let me say this. So
Undue process.
I'll say this, and I'm happy to be honest about this. I am very left-leaning in almost every social issue, right?
Sure.
Abortion is the biggest struggle. I'm not saying that I don't say that it's the woman's right. Abortion is the biggest struggle, because usually the reason I'm left-leaning is I say we should govern in a way that people can make their own individual decisions as adults, as long as they're not hurting someone else.
Right.
So can two homosexuals get married? Absolutely, right? That's where I lean left, because whether you like it or not, it's none of your business, okay? Abortion's a little bit different, because now you're talking about when is a baby, and now you're talking about her rights versus the baby's rights, right? And I'll say this: if it's a struggling subject for you, it should be. This is a challenging subject. So anybody that just has their mind made up too much, too easily, I think is missing it. It's a challenge for me. My biggest problem, though, is when we start coming up with ways to define when the child is a human being. Some people say it's as early as 17, 18, 19 days, right? There's a heartbeat. A lot of Christian people say that life is in the blood as soon as there's blood, right?
That's why there's a separation of church and state.
Right, well, yeah, but I'm just saying that's where they get their theory. But look, my question is this: if it's 19 days that it's a person, so does that person that says I'm against abortion because it's a human at 19 days, so at 18 days and 23 hours, is it completely free and clear, and then an hour later it's all of a sudden wrong? And that's really where the struggle comes from. Let me ask y'all this, though, before we decide when it is a person, or what we believe when it is a person, let me ask y'all this.
We're going to decide it?
Well, before we get into that too much, because I will personally say that I'm pro-choice, because I think the woman should have the right to make that choice. Right. However, that's what I'm pro-choice from a government standpoint. I've had 2 opportunities or chances to have an abortion personally, and I was pro-life.
And you made that decision for yourself.
And I'm not saying that it wasn't the most convenient situation, right? Like a lot of people that probably choose abortions, it wasn't the most convenient situation, and I still was pro-life. And for myself, I just don't think I should govern my morality on 330 million people. Well, now, let me ask y'all this. So before we get into all that, though, should our tax money go toward Planned Parenthood? Because I think that's a whole other question. Should our tax money go toward Planned Parenthood? Should our tax money go toward funding abortions? What do y'all think about that?
The question is, when I pay my taxes, if I disagree with what the government decides is legal when it relates to abortion, should the money I'm spending or I'm giving to the government go towards that?
If you're a senator,
yeah,
and they say, or you're the president, and they say we need an executive order on abortion tonight, Scott, does tax money go toward abortion?
Absolutely, because at the core of Planned Parenthood or any of those things, you're talking about the health of the mother and this fetus life. So to me, taking away funding from an organization that's designed to work inside the framework of the current existing legislation is counterproductive on the biggest level ever, where if the government's saying it's okay for people to have an abortion at a certain time, we shouldn't then therefore come back and put pressure unduly on those doctors to do shady, kind of abortions in back alleys. It needs to be funded.
But what's happening is the states, because of Planned Parenthood versus Casey, the states now have started this huge push on overregulation and making it impossible for someone to get, almost impossible for somebody to get an abortion. Mississippi has no more abortion clinics.
Right.
Okay, it's a tax on the poor in terms of, if you're poor, these abortion clinics that are set up to help people that can't afford it, it doesn't make abortion illegal. Somebody with money or Blue Cross Blue Shield can still go to their normal doctor and say, I need to schedule an abortion. But the people that don't have insurance or that don't have money rely on these clinics that are being shut down in waves because of the overregulation. And so now these poor people don't have options. There was a girl, 13 years old. She was sexually assaulted, right? And because of the state she was sexually assaulted in, which was Texas, 13 years old, she went to go get an abortion. Now, because of all the new regulations that Texas has imposed, it was damn near, she drove 4 hours to get turned away because there's a 72-hour wait period. You have to have a nurse anesthetist.
You also
You have to have parental, which I thought was ironic because they split that 4 and 4 versus parental or husbandry.
Right.
You know, the husband, the spouse doesn't get a say. But so this 13-year-old girl is being regulated into motherhood. You know, when it's not, she was raped or whatever. And the big point is that it's legal. It's theoretically legal for her to get an abortion, but literally it's not achievable as like they say it is, because there's so many due process points that they have to jump through. They're making it so overtly hard for someone in that situation to get it done. And the doctor that was giving the interview said that if that girl is going to get an abortion, she's going to have to go to New Mexico, and then she's going to have to pay $5,000. And then she's going to have to put herself up. And she didn't have the funds. You got girls calling doctors and asking, look, I don't have insurance, I don't have this, but if I told you what I got in my kitchen drawers, could you help me out?
Right.
You know, and when we've got to that point where we're making it that hard to get an abortion, we've lost sight of what the fuck we're doing.
Well, and to me, I understand why you asked the questions in the order that you asked them tonight. However, it's very difficult for me to have a discussion about abortion without talking about it in the context of when is it a life and when is it not a life. And I listened to a great interview today where they were talking about it in terms of development. Like the kind of consensus right now is that at 24 weeks, a fetus is viable, and that's kind of a consensus. Even though as technology increases in the medical fields, they have cases of 21 weeks. So it's a weird needle to be moved. But you shared a personal story. I'll tell you that when my 18-year-old son was born, he was going to be a C-section birth, and as a result, we got a chance to go in and see the 4D sonograms very early on in the process. And for me personally, and this is not a religious thing in any way, shape, or form, but I was able to see a moving, living, fetus, and I'll call it a fetus because that's what I thought of it. And the only thing stopping Max at that point from becoming the Max that he is now was time. And the process had started, and so it was going to be beginning. And that's the danger of this entire conversation is you could say that at conception, the development process has started, and that's where a lot of my conservative Christian friends would base their conversation. And I was talking to somebody today about this issue, and I'll jump on your bandwagon. There are a lot of people that are conservative, they believe God, they believe the Bible, and they're very passionate about the subject of abortion. The problem is abortion doesn't have to involve a conversation about God. And every time, a Bible verse is quoted or some morality issue is brought into the conversation, in my opinion, the whole conversation loses a little bit of integrity because it becomes an emotional perspective that is about, their core beliefs as people about the preciousness of life. And I think that you can have a much more intelligent conversation if you simply keep the subject to when does life truly begin? And most of my life I've spent conception. But the more I have studied science, the more I've exposed myself to things, I am open to that needle moving a little bit further down the path. But just today, I looked at a day-by-day shot of an embryo all the way to 9 months or full term, and good grief, it's inside the first 15 days that it really looks like a baby, and that it's merely just time.
Sure.
And so I am very conflicted, because to me it's not about a woman's choice. And I know that sounds terrible, and who are three men in a garage to talk about what is and what isn't a woman's choice?
Well, Leviticus says.
Shut your face. But the reality is, I can have an opinion about when it is okay or not okay to take a life.
But let me ask you this: is abortion on a political scale, on a governing scale, is it about what you personally believe, or is it about whether or not you feel like personally people should be able to choose what they believe? Because again, I'm pretty pro-life, but I don't think I should call Danny a murderer if 2 months in he feels like it's not wrong to have an abortion. I feel like that's too strong of a word for me to use on Danny, A. And B, again, I go back to I'm pro-life for myself. I don't know, if I had a daughter that was raped at 13, I would be pro-choice. I mean, I would abort. I mean, you don't even have to ask me.
The emotions.
You don't even have to
truly
ask me.
dictate.
I would abort. So I guess maybe I am pro-choice. But in a normal circumstance where me as an adult, I create a child with another human being, I'm pro-life. But on a government basis, I'm still pro-choice, because I want the freedom to choose what I feel like should happen. Now, the bad side of or the struggle side of pro-choice, let me ask you this, Danny. You get a girl pregnant, because you're pro-choice, right? I think it's fair to say you're pro-choice. You get a girl pregnant, and you fall in love with this baby. Maybe you see the 3D, videos of this baby, and it's already, and you've been talking to it in the belly of this woman. And then, 8 months in, she decides she wants to have an abortion, and she's the woman that's going to have the baby, so it's her choice. At that point, is it a struggle to be pro-choice?
Oh, I'd be devastated. I mean, it's very emotional. I'd be devastated unless I was really fearing those child support payments. I'd be devastated. However, I would still I'd check my box in the fact that it's her right to choose.
At what point right now, just in that question, does it
8
cease?
months is a bit much.
Do you think that's the number?
I mean, the Supreme Court said third trimester is when states can get involved.
Right.
And so I believe at that point it's no
Is
longer
that what you
national.
would have wanted the Supreme Court to say? Would you?
I mean, I think if you're looking at is this a fetus now or personhood, so on and so forth, if you haven't made up your mind by the third trimester, something's wrong.
Yeah.
Now I do know that you can still have sex up until the third trimester.
I have heard that.
Yeah. So I'm always willing to explore new areas, but
Wait, what are we
I had a
talking
friend of
about
mine-
now?
Look, I had a friend of mine, no shit. His wife was pregnant, and of course I won't mention names. His wife was pregnant, and up to the third trimester, they started having sex and stuff like that. When she felt like it was good, she was getting randy.
So it's Randy.
Yeah, no. She was, and Austin Powers.
Is it the Randy that's tuned in?
No.
He's typing, oh shit.
But she was still self-conscious because, she's bigger than she's ever been, she's pregnant, and stuff like that. And after sex, which my buddy said was just amazing, she turned to her and she goes, well, how was it? And my friend, without thinking, he's like, man, it was awesome. He's like, I've never had sex with a fat chick before. He said as soon as those words left his mouth,
He got that
he
ass
realized
whooped.
he had fucked up and he couldn't put them back in.
should've
And he
got
said his wife just went ballistic. He was like, no, I mean, like you use different positions.
Vicky Lynn Dennison says, it's my understanding that you can't file insurance for an abortion. It's a cash business. Correct me if I'm wrong.
You are correct.
Abortion is only paid for by insurance if there's a fetal death or potential for demise. I think it should stay a cash business, but could be a situationally determined practice. Thanks for sharing that, Vicky.
Thanks, Vicky. But I would also say that's why it's a tax on the poor. When all these abortion clinics getting shut down, there was an abortion clinic in Alabama, and they instituted all these new what they call trap laws to trap people into not being able to stay open. that they told this dude had to jump through so many hoops. So what the guy did was he completely emptied out his retirement and rebuilt a new place and followed all those specifics. And now the state of Alabama is specifically targeting him, saying, well, we don't want you within 2,000 feet of school. And so now they're going back after him specifically. You know, and these are trap laws. This is what's wrong with our
Because we
country.
live in the South.
This is what happened. Yeah, it's because we live in the South. And if you want to talk about religion making an impact, you know, somebody's religious beliefs making an impact on someone that may not be religious.
Did you see when Jeff Sessions quoted Romans the
Oh
other
my
day?
God, what a moron! You know, holy shit!
How do you
be in
really
public
feel?
office.
I
Kind
was
of.
screaming at the TV.
Were you?
Yeah. Oh my God.
You watch TV?
I know. Well, you know, YouTube. Screaming at my phone.
It's a tough subject, man. Because again, I go back to I'm pro-life 95% of the time.
Sure.
I think there are circumstances that I would say, you know, there needs to be an abortion, but I would say pretty much every circumstance you could throw at me that's not some crazy my daughter got raped circumstance. I'm pro-life. On a governing basis, I'm pro-choice because I think people should be able to choose for themselves.
Well, Roe v. Wade was.
But it's a
set
challenge.
upon. Roe v. Wade was set upon. What's her name in Texas? She claimed she was raped, and in Texas, back in 1978, in Texas, the only way you could get an abortion is if it was rape or incest. She couldn't prove the claim of rape, and so that's why it ended up getting thrown out. And that's why
I think people should be able to choose for themselves. That's why I don't think
Absolutely.
it's the state's job
I'm
to choose.
pro-choice. I think it's
Now, I also, you know, I respect that people have beliefs and they're trying to stick up for the baby,
Sure.
I think. And I think that the projection they paint in their mind is there are all of these indecent, irresponsible people just screwing and just aborting babies, no matter if they're babies yet or not, no matter how many
That's
months
a
in.
horrible-
But you've
yeah.
also got the other extreme where you've got this 15-year-old girl going to an abortion clinic making the most challenging decision of her life, and you got people spitting in her face and yelling at her with signs calling her a murderer.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's fair, you know?
I went to school with this girl. I won't mention her name either. A lot of that going on tonight. I went to school with this girl, and she was super, just wicked smart. You know, had her life figured out, knew what college she was going to be going to. I think she was a sophomore at the time. Anyways, she got pregnant with this just piece of shit guy. You know, got pregnant. I ended up over at their house 3 or 4 years later because of something that happened with a friend of mine. Anyways, we go over there, and it's 3 o'clock in the morning, and her kids are up and just running around the house. And just, I mean, Cartoon Network's on, every light in the house is on. She hasn't seen her husband in 4 days, you know, or longer. And I remember asking her, I was like, how do you feel? I was like, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I said, your kids are up running all around. She had like 2 or 3 boys. And she looked at me and just the most desperate look and said, man, I feel trapped. She's like, I feel trapped. She said, don't get me wrong, I love my kids with all my heart, and I would never trade anything for them. She said, but I'm fucked. And had she made a decision, maybe a smarter decision, had she worked on them, had she done many other things, but she could have made that decision. I still would say it's her right to make that decision, to not put herself in that situation.
I think I have just discovered that I am much more pro-life than I thought, and I'm not doing it
Sure, no, absolutely.
to be contrary, but
From a governing standpoint or a personal standpoint?
both. Because you just told a very compelling, emotional story that would still be true 6 months after that child is born and out of the womb.
Sure.
However, at that point, clearly she would be in jail if she terminated the life of a 6-month-old child. And so I have a hard time with the logic that says because the mother or the child are going to have a hard life and they're going to regret that it should be that mother's choice.
I think most people that are pro-life say just adopt the baby, you know? Just have
Well,
sex.
but
it's
again-
not always. First off, there's the human equation.
Well, it's really challenging to adopt.
Can I?
Yeah, go ahead and finish.
It's the logic part of it that because the baby is still inside the woman, that same story that you just told about somebody whose life went differently than they planned it. Because the baby's inside the woman, it's her choice to not, she could have made a different choice and had a different life. But the moment the baby pops out, if she were to contemplate that, she's a terrible person.
Right.
And so for me, that doesn't make sense. It has to.
It's not real. It's not real. In the first trimester, most women will tell you it doesn't feel real. I mean, you can tell you're pregnant, but you don't feel like you've got a
Sure,
6-pound baby.
sure.
You know, you don't have such an emotional connection like you would at the third trimester.
Well, it goes back to when does human life start?
But that's
Probably
yeah.
after they graduate college.
Yeah, hey, that's why I'm saying I think I'm a little bit more pro-life, but not in a traditional life begins at conception. But I think that a woman has a choice. I think two consenting adults have a choice to have sex or not.
If you're
That's
pro-
the
That's
big-
crap.
Okay, but
Yeah.
here's the thing, Scott.
Have you ever?
Hold up. Let me ask Scott a question. So Scott,
Yes.
you say you say you think you kind of came into this maybe thinking you were pro-choice and maybe you're pro-life, but like I said I'm pro-choice on a governing perspective, right? And you said you think you might be pro-life on a governing perspective. So if you were making the executive order for the country, when would you say life begins?
That's my absolute problem with the whole thing.
Yeah.
Is if you're asking my opinion, which would be very difficult to manifest on a national government level, it is simply that I think that you can see that there is a life, a child, I said the wrong word, a child, that all that it's going to take is time for that thing to grow.
But didn't you say you could see?
But
that
do you
at
think that
15
about
days?
do you think
I mean,
that
you
about
really-
a sperm,
you really
or do you
can't.
think that about a 3-week-old baby?
Like
or do you think
to
that
me,
about,
yeah, to me that is the question. Like it's when you look at a chart and you can Google it and you look at the pictures that show the development process of an embryo, like there's a point where it's cells and dividing and all of that kind of stuff, and then it kind of becomes to take shape. I could blow holes in my entire argument, the same thing I'm saying, because you could say that once the sperm reach the egg, that you have started an inevitability.
Did you hear about North Carolina?
By God, what happened?
They're trying to pass a thing where I think you can hear the baby's heartbeat after 15 days,
Yeah.
15 days, something like that.
I'm going to go live with your screen right now, Matt.
They were trying to pass a
can
law.
they hear us when you do that?
Yes.
They were trying to pass a law that said for a mother to have an abortion after 19 days, she had to look at the sonogram,
Yes.
and listen to the heartbeat. Forced them to. And the only way they could, it's an absolute force to do it, and the only way they could not do it, they can cover their eyes and close their ears. Cover their
Yeah.
ears. That's the dumbest shit ever.
But I mean, look at
it doesn't
some of those
matter.
pictures.
That's this 7.5 weeks. By the end of week 4, the child is 10,000 times larger than the fertilized eggs.
Nobody
Yeah.
can see you.
Eyes, legs, and hands begin to develop. Brain waves are detectable. Mouth and lips are present. Fingernails are forming.
So I killed that child all the way up to week 28. I'll go 28 with you. 28, 26, something like that.
Until that head starts fitting a one-size-fits-all
Absolutely.
starter cap, you're just ready to go.
And, you know what I'm saying? Look, I'm just saying, we got 7.5 billion people on the planet. And it amazes me how much people care about abortion until the baby's born. And they don't give a fuck.
I agree with that.
It's all this, women's rights this, or, life starts at this. But once that baby's out, I don't want that kid on EBT. That's a drain on the, I'm sorry, you're 13 and we forced you into motherhood because of, regulations, but now
You're
it's your
saying
problem.
the same crowd that's pro-life is the same crowd saying I don't want to help you
Absolutely.
when you're 13 years old and you have to.
Yeah,
have a
obviously your
baby.
fault. You're 13-year-olds, you have a kid, what's your problem?
Yeah.
And the other
but that
side of
same-
that coin
go ahead.
is, when we talk about life, and I don't know if we go religious with this or not, but when you talk about life, man, I saw this video on Facebook, and it was these cute little chickens. These just little peeps, little beautiful little yellow chickens. And they were all cheep, 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 and there was like hundreds of them. And they were on this conveyor belt. And they were just jumping up and down. They had people around that conveyor belt. One would get off the track, they'd put them back on the track, and they just go down. And then at the end, and I'm talking about hundreds of chickens just passing every second. And as they get to the end, there's two big ass steel cylinders. And these baby chickens just fall down into the cylinder and they're smashed and turn into goo. Now, at what point do we, where does the value of life end? When we look at dolphins having babies, or we look at elephants having babies, or cattle having babies, these are animals that have personality. Elephants are some of the smartest creatures on the face of the earth.
I agree, man.
But where's the outrage with those guys? It's crap.
Yeah.
It's crap to say.
Well, that's why I lean left on a lot of environmental stuff too, man. I think that there's too many people that take the dominion over the earth so serious that they don't care about animals.
We're humans. We're top of the food chain. We're also the number one reason as
well. If you look at the 7 deadly sins, and I am going to go a little bit religious. You look at the 7 deadly sins, right? Pride and greed and lust and all that, right? All they're talking about is having things in excess, right? When you have something to such an excess, right? And so I think us, even if we're at the top of the food chain, I think excessively treating nature, which, look, plants are conscious. Yeah. Plants are aware of their surroundings, right? So treating nature and treating animals in excess to the point where we go, oh, we can farm these things and beat these things and do whatever we want because we have to make. That's why I think it's completely wrong.
Well, the biggest living organism on the earth is a grove of trees outside of Washington State. It's like so many miles.
No, big. It's not. The biggest living organism on earth is a mushroom.
Miles long.
Mushroom.
You may be right, but
what's his name? Paul Stamets. Is it Paul Stamets? That's the big mushroom scientist guy that's on Joe Rogan a couple times.
Yeah, I saw that guy.
It's literally like almost a 1.5 mile mushroom. Mushrooms are really interesting. If you listen to that podcast on Joe Rogan, Paul Stamets,
look,
dude, they form entire ecosystems.
Yeah, they're like fungus.
Mushrooms will grow, kill a tree, and take a forest, kill an area of the forest, and then create a new landscape in that forest.
That sounds real.
Mushrooms are more like people than they are plants. They actually breathe oxygen more like people.
So they say the quaking aspen in Utah covers 106 acres of land and is estimated to weigh more than 6,000 metric tons.
I like it, man. Here's what we're going to do.
But they were talking about funguses and stuff like that, and they weren't talking on that podcast, but they were talking about how funguses will get in the brains of ants and make them zombies and turn around and have them do what they want to do and go and die in a cool place so that they can rinse and repeat.
Hey, they've got theories out there. I thought you'd like this one. There's a theory out there that that evolution was due to like psychoactive mushrooms, like some monkeys.
DHT and
no, I'm talking about like magic mushrooms. Like some apes stumbled upon some magic mushrooms coming out of the Ice Age. And that's where their consciousness expanded as evolution progressed them past the monkey stage into the Neanderthal stage. And then, but I thought you'd like this about the Bible. There's also Jewish scholars now that are saying that they believe the burning bush with Moses. That's what you were talking about. Could be DMT. Could be a psychoactive. Well, no, because there's tons of bushes that have DMT in it, which dimethyltryptamine. It's a psychoactive.
I met a lot of those bushes in high school.
So they said it could have been
that's before they cleaned it up.
Hey, here's what we're going to do real quick. 2 to 3 minutes to give a final idea on abortion, and then what we'll do is we'll keep the after show rolling. So if we want to stay on abortion on the after show, we can. But to close the episode that we'll actually upload, guys, if you're still with us, we're going to keep going for a while. We appreciate you tuning in. We got everything back up and running, so keep chatting with us on Facebook. We love reading it. Keep sending us text messages, whatever. But real quick, Scott, 2 minutes, just kind of your final thoughts on abortion. I think it's kind of cool that Scott actually accidentally on this podcast, and this is what we wanted to do here, but facilitating this open environment, you kind of switched lanes a little bit from pro-choice to pro-life a little bit.
Well, I was never pro-choice after life is determined, but I thought I was farther right on what when life begins. Yeah. Farther left. You're right.
You thought life began a lot later than now hearing and seeing some of the stuff.
Well, I'm willing to concede that life may or may not begin at conception, and as a result of that, I was kind of open to some kind of more left leaning. But just the more I think about it, you know, it is, to me, life begins at some point. We're going to all argue it, and that's a problem. And that's the problem with the discussion of abortion is everybody makes it about choice. Everybody makes it about a woman. Everybody makes it about everything. But the real issue is, when does life begin? And if we could answer that, we wouldn't be talking about it anymore because
I would say you're probably right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, in terms of when does life begin, but you also, I would say, you know, you also have to think about, do people care when life begins?
I think they do.
I mean,
I do think that's $1 million question.
I
Personally.
think life begins once the sperm and the egg pull together.
So you're basically saying you're pro-choice, but you understand that you're ending a life,
Yeah,
and you
absolutely.
just think it's just not a viable enough life because
Yeah,
it's
it
not.
doesn't matter. It's just like I eat a chicken, you know, for lunch every day, or I eat eggs for breakfast. Yeah, I made a decision, and I made a conscious decision to kill something in order to eat, or just for fun.
Well, we read a fun series of books in the Da Vinci series that basically one of the premises of this book is that the greatest problem for our planet and our people is the amount of people that we have, and that we're not going to be able to sustain
We want
it.
to talk about Infinity War.
Yeah,
Thanos-
I don't because
Thanos.
I haven't seen it yet.
Thanos was a hero in Infinity War. He was an anti-hero, but a hero nonetheless,
Right.
because he saw what overpopulation did.
Right.
And if you don't curb that, you know, what happens? Guys, my point is, you know, to quote Bill and Ted, be excellent to each other. You know?
Really?
That's it. That's where I'm going.
That's what
I
you're
don't
getting
care.
That's your closing argument
Look,
for
I
abortion?
don't care. I think it's pro-choice. Third trimester, I'm kind of iffy on. Anything before that, hey, things happen. You know, and I'm good. You know?
Make it an accident. That's
Yeah,
what
you
you're
know,
saying.
hey, look, sometimes, you know, bitches fall downstairs. You know, I ain't trying to pay child support. Look, these hoes out here will get you. Look, you know what I'm talking about?
Did you say hose or holes?
These hoes and hoes. Look, in Europe, they're passing a huge new law that it gives the guy the choice to step away from the pregnancy. He's got up to 24 weeks to go, I don't want to be a part of this child's life. And not only do I sign over all rights, but I'm no longer financially responsible for that child.
Because a
Which-
man can abort, is that why?
yeah, well, because a woman can say, I'm going to keep this baby whether you like it or not, and you're him to me for the next 18 years. Or a woman can also say, you know what, I'm not ready for this responsibility. I'm going to abort this, and the man gets no say so in either way. So in Europe, they're saying if the guy
So you not
decides
only
to
believe in
opt out-
pro-choice, you believe a man should be able to sign off and be like,
yeah, absolutely. It gives a woman
consensual
Look,
abortion on
I
the
can, look, I'm gonna tell you how many friends I got that have been trapped, you know, that got simply through pregnancy. But I would say that if it's completely fair for a woman to know 24 weeks in or 10 weeks in, 19 weeks in, whatever, going forward, that if they continue to go down this path, they're on their own and they're not gonna get any financial help from anybody else that may have helped. I think that's fair. I think it's completely fair to say.
To close out my my piece, man, I think I've already said it, but I'm just gonna say it one more time. I don't see me ever aborting a child. I don't see me ever doing it, and unless it's one of those rare, crazy cases where my daughter gets raped, or you know, my wife's gonna die if she has this baby for sure, and the baby might not live. You know, unless it's those crazy things, I'm never aborting a baby. That being said, I don't feel like it's right for me to take my morality and govern it on 330 million people. And the reason I come from that is because, look, I've got all kinds of beliefs that I live by that is morality, you know, and I just don't think it's right for me to govern everyone else. I think government, it's pro-choice for me is because of my opinion on what government's role is. And I don't think it's government's role to tell individuals what to do unless they're hurting their fellow neighbor. I get that you think that that's a life, but I think that they should be able to choose. That said, I'm with you guys in that even though I am pro-choice, the cutoff definitely, I don't know, third trimester might be a little late.
That's where,
I think I'm pro-choice
doctors-
first trimester, and then second trimester, I think it would need to be circumstantial maybe. I don't know. But I'm kind of like you, Scott. I'm definitely pro-life for myself, I think, you know. It's just my fundamental opinion on government, you know, and what government should look like.
I'll grab a dog and I'll shoot him.
Don't shake the baby.
He went Friday on us. Hey, man, we appreciate y'all tuning in. We're going to keep it rolling for anybody that's still watching. And you guys get a special after show nobody else gets to see. We're just going to sit here and bullshit for an hour or so and hang out and see what you guys feel. But we're going to go ahead and end the official show
Vicky,
and move on.
Thank you, Vicky, for staying with us.
Down. I know that was tough on you guys. So, I guess we're going to have to turn off Amber Alerts.
Watch your mouth.
We'll edit that out. That's only on the after show. So now we're to the after show, man. You guys tell us what you guys think about abortion. Throw it on our page. Man, it's tough for me. Gay marriage, easy for me. Easy for me, right? You're not hurting anybody. Go do whatever the hell you want to do.
I say kill them all, let God sort them out.
On the abortion side, it's tough. It's a tough subject for me.
It's
Really tough because I don't want to not care about a 6-month in the womb baby.
But we don't care about a 12-month-old.
But again, I go back to if my 13-year-old daughter was raped, and the state tried to say she had to have that baby and she might die from it. I go, well, that's bullshit. We should.
There's always that, regardless.
Will you grab me one of those?
Yeah. But I would go back and say, though, that gay marriage is the harder, issue. No.
Than abortion?
It's harder not because it is the circumstances, the issues are different. Hey, thank you. I thank you. It's harder for me because there are so many different opinions. I think all three of us in this room kind of share the same opinion that two men loving each other, two women loving each other doesn't have anything to do with me, so I don't have an opinion about that. But it's a harder topic because when two gay people love each other. You know what I'm saying? You can see it.
So why does that make it a harder topic? That makes it an easier topic.
Yeah, I know.
No.
I'm struggling to follow you.
It's harder because... God damn it.
Hit him with the, I don't think you understand, so let me say.
Are you talking are you talking into the Bud Light or the microphone?
I don't know. I
don't think we can have proper nouns on this. We don't have sponsorship.
Well, we have a button.
Tear that label off.
I'm just going to stop talking because this is the after show.
No, I really want to understand.
What I was saying.
We got to pick the mic back up because they want to hear too.
All right. What I was saying is,
how is homosexuality a more challenging issue than abortion for you?
To me, it's grayer and it's much more. It's easier for that discussion to be. You have an opinion about it. You have an opinion about it. You have an opinion about it. So many different opinions.
Like because it doesn't play on your feelings as much, it makes it more challenging because it's not as extreme.
Black and white.
That's what I'm saying. It's not black and white. It is very. Everybody has a different comfortability. Everybody, like even somebody who is gay may have a different comfortability with coming out or not coming out.
Well, there definitely are people that are gay that think it's wrong to be gay and they're gay.
Sure, absolutely. I know.
Openly gay people that go to church and feel like it's wrong and are trying to pray the gay out of themselves.
So that's why that whole conversation is difficult for me because I have to be very sensitive, and I definitely grew up in a very homophobic environment,
growing up in the church.
Southern Baptist, third, preacher son. So, I didn't actually meet a gay person until I was in college. And now I may have met many, but I didn't have a friend that I interacted with until I was in college. So they were all a group. I would say words like they.
Would you say that you were sheltered from that?
Absolutely, I would say that.
Until college?
Yes. And, I went to public school and all of that. So I believe that I met many people
that weren't ready to come out.
Or whatever. But that whole discussion is, I find myself constantly watching what I'm saying because I don't want to offend somebody with my own ignorance on the issue.
I hear that. I'm just struggling.
So that's that part of it. Okay. The other side of it, when it comes to abortion, it's a much more simple conversation because of what I talked about at the end of it. Whenever the consensus agrees, however that's possible, that it is a life.
Yeah.
And it ceases from being
but that's the problem, is the consensus doesn't.
Roe versus Wade answers that question.
Well, Roe versus Wade answers that question then. And how much...
I still think it holds true.
Well, but let me ask you this. That was 1970, I thought it was 3, but 8?
It may be 3. I thought it was 8.
I would imagine, and I'm just
No,
speculating.
it was 73 because the lady got pregnant in 69.
Did you just do math that she was pregnant for 4 years?
Was that a
No,
69?
she got, no. Roe v. Wade was unique, as in, by the time the case made it to the Supreme Court, the lady had already had the baby.
That's
she
right.
was forced to have it.
Yeah. So my thing is, the abortion discussion is not as great for me. I hear people, and they have all these intense debates about whether it's this person's choice, this person's whatever, but to me, it's a much more simple discussion. I can dismiss any emotional conversation about how hard my life is going to be or how hard the child's life is going to be or whatever. It falls into one category. When it's a life and you terminate it, that's wrong. When it's if it's not a life and you terminate it, then you could have passed gas.
It's a life at 12 days or 10 days. Or even before then. I think it's a life at conception. I think the process begins. I just don't give a fuck.
Vicky on
hard.
Facebook says that she thinks more women need to be educated on being, responsibilities of having sex. I completely agree with that. I think if you're a huge pro-life kind of person, do that, man. Educate women on responsibilities of having sex.
I gotta drive back to Athens.
All right, wait till he goes back though.
Yeah, absolutely. We're gonna stop right there. And then pick up right here.
got double-
Look,
you double minded
look,
up?
that was
You're probably yelling at him right
that
now.
was Vince Vaughn. He's gonna stop right there, and then we're gonna pick up right here. The Wedding Crashers. What was it? Great quotes, guys. Great quotes, and man, just fall short.
No, that was old school.
Was that old school? That was old school.
Welcome,
Yes,
so
that was old school.
So it's that easy for you though, huh? It's
Yeah,
already
man.
a life and still kill it
And look,
anyway.
as much as we kill life on this planet, through war, through animals, through whatever, we're the last people to say, and we truly don't give a shit about what happens to that child in terms of helping it after that child's
One
born.
thing I will say is there's a ton of pro-life people that ain't having, they're not having a funeral for that baby.
Dude, I knew a dude that.
I mean, there are people that have funerals
Look,
for aborted babies.
Talking about creepy as shit, y'all. I knew a dude that the baby was a miscarriage or something like that. They had a funeral for this child, and it was in a little baby coffin. Same shit you ever saw, right? But he just kept posting that shit on Facebook. Like, I don't want to see that shit.
Can I say
I
I
don't see that.
still
I don't see a
completely don't
picture of a
am
dead
not
baby.
following the last point that Scott made? I have no idea.
He's saying that that being gay is more of a gray area in terms of
There's more opinions on it?
There's so many different nuances to it.
I don't get it. I don't get it. You've got religious people or
I think what he's
people
saying is
that are angry at a group of people for no good reason that say it's wrong, and then everybody else says it's right. I don't
yeah, but
see
I
the
think
gray
what
area.
he's saying is life. It's all about when we decide where life begins, and that answers his question for him. So it's a more cut and dry situation, I think. If I'm
You're absolutely correct.
Guys, look. I hate that I'm bouncing. I know the after show.
Danny was sick. He didn't want to do the episode.
I was sick today, and I have to drive back to California, which is an hour and a half, and then I got to work tomorrow.
Me
So
and Scott are gonna stick around for a little
thank you so much for tuning in, guys. We really appreciate it, and don't always take these seriously because I just like to stir the pot. I'm really a very devout Christian,
Let me say this though, man. We were talking a lot about.
and I love babies. And that's it. I'm out. Do I want to turn this off, Scott?
Apparently, your mic was messing up.
I think it was my mic.
Fellas.
All right. Now that Danny's leaving, we're gonna break out a Bible.
Absolutely.
First hesitations, I would like to address.
of the world.
Yeah. Danny, seriously, be safe. Hit me a glimpse and leave it on for 3 hours.
Sure, I'll do that.
I'll say
So
this too,
I
though,
can
man. When you're
always
talking
look
about
in and see if
leaning
you're
left or
living.
right on abortion, you know,
Yes.
my left-leaning friends are some empathetic people. You know, they're some empathetic people. So, I don't know, man. Are you gonna try to reconnect that? Let's not. You don't have to reconnect.
The
that
what?
for me. Hey, did you see that video on Facebook of that lady in the elevator beating on that baby?
No.
It is fucked up. It's messed up.
But it should just
I'm about
be
to show
your
it to you.
opinion of whether or not she's allowed to beat on a baby.
Oh, no, that's completely fucked up.
Yeah.
Let me show you. I'm going to try to pull it up. I think, did I post it? Or did I just tag someone in it? What do y'all think about abortion, man? Let us know. My big question that I'm with you, man. I think the $1 million question is just, when does life begin? That's what I don't have a good understanding. And I'm kind of with you. If you said life begins here, it would be easier to be pro-life. But that's the challenge.
So while you're looking up that video, I want to open party discussion in the UNparty garage of when is the after show and when is the subject?
No, just whenever we feel. I mean, look, we went a little long on the show because it blacked out on us.
Yeah.
But typically, I think the show's the hour and a half, and then the after show's after that. But you know, if we're on our final subject, which we do at the end, and it's there's more to be said, I just feel like we had already kind of said pretty much what we were going to say. We were kind of going in circles. You want to check this video out real quick
Yeah,
and
I'm
see
gonna
how
bring that up.
fucking disturbing this is? This lady deserves. I wish she would have been aborted.
Okay, hold.
If y'all have seen
There's
this.
the video. Our voices are about to go away. Press play.
对，29层。
I can't play it anymore.
Your mic's up.
I can't play that anymore. I can't even look at it. I feel like I'm supporting that video going around. Oh man, that just breaks my heart. Can you imagine your babysitter doing that to your baby?
No.
I think I would kill someone. I think I think it would be justifiable homicide
At least I would do that
to them.
to them.
No, because that's a big giant adult fist in a baby. You'd have to do it like 50 times harder at least.
Well, I have a big, giant adult fist.
I think you should use a hammer on that one.
Okay.
But dude, that's tough to watch, right?
Dude.
Dude! Why did you just say I shared a video?
I don't know. You did.
What do you think we should talk about next week, Scott?
Man, I've been thinking a lot about that. Thinking date rape.
Date rape should be the subject next week.
I mean, like best practices. How to do it. Man, I had a character that I did for the real estate industry where I was Ted Truitt, the world's most unethical real estate sales coach. And they would set me up and I would do these like lectures where I would talk about lectures that I was going to be giving. And one of them was, sexual harassment, how to do it correctly. One was how to avoid the IRS, and anyways, that's where I got a train of thought on that.
Yeah.
Man, I have a desire to be very current. Like I enjoyed, kind of researching the Trump and the North Korean thing, and I want us to talk about things that people are currently asking questions about, what the memes are that are distracting people. I think abortion is...
So for you, it's not about, hey, are you saying that in contrast to like our main subject, or are you just saying in general you like talking about what's current more so than just finding a subject that's confrontational and talking about it? That's kind of...
I mean, I like it, but
I like it depending on what's going on though, man. Sometimes the news, that's why I go in and out with the news, because the news wants ratings and they want money, so they create stories when there is no story.
Right.
And then this North and South Korea thing and the Trump summit, it's like, I know we know so little about what's really going on that sometimes I'm like, we're just talking about the curtains. We don't know what the hell's really going on.
Yeah.
But I'm with you in that. I like being current. I like it being something that's, kind of relevant.
And it's not even that it's necessarily like some topic that's on the news right now, but more of, I feel like abortion, like as a topic for three white dudes in a garage, is a little
Put
bit.
labels on us, bro. Why don't we be white dudes?
I in my heart, I'm just kidding. No, it's just a. I don't ever want to force issues, and I don't think we forced it. I think that, we had a very, open, honest conversation between dudes about that issue. So
Abortion's a tough subject for me. I mean, because it's an easy decision. My wife could walk out here right now and say I'm pregnant, and she could say, "Oh, also I didn't tell you I'm $300,000 in credit card debt, and there's no way we can afford this baby," and I'd still have it, and I'd still make a way.
Yeah.
But it's hard for me to tell women that they're murderers for feeling as though they're doing the responsible thing.
Right.
I think that's where my struggle is. Vicky asked if we talked about this Virginia guy. I touched on it, Vicky. It's that guy. She's talking about this guy in Virginia that's running for Congress that is openly saying that he supports pedophilia to some extent and incest to some extent. And he's literally running for office. And so that's the only reason he's getting so much hype. It's just one guy, in my opinion, that thinks like a lot of other psychopaths do. I mean, you got to think about 30 million, 40 million people in the country, right? So if a small percentage of the country is complete lunatic psychopaths, you're still talking about maybe 30 million people.
Yeah.
That's a really, really small percentage of the country. So I think he's just getting a lot of press just because he says he's running for office. When I look at the guy, he doesn't look like the kind of guy that typically runs for office, or he doesn't look like he'll have a lot of campaign support. So I can't take him that serious. We did talk about it a little bit because somehow Danny took us down some wave of, I don't know how pedophilia even came up in the beginning. But
It was probably from that.
Was it?
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah. I heard a couple of sound bites today, just kind of scrolling through different things,
Yeah.
But
What do you think we should talk about next week? I think our people should tell us what we should talk about next week. What do y'all think we should talk about next 2 weeks, I guess? What do y'all think we should talk about in 2 weeks? I'll be honest, man. They weren't going to say anything back.
yeah. Well, are we going to take sound bites from this section and things like that to kind of use going forward?
Yeah. I feel like I would like to hear our people tell us if they like hearing us argue with each other about the Bible and God. I feel like that's taken up a big portion of both of the first episodes, and our whole intention was never to have a religious debate show. Yeah. And that's cool if it's like the tough subject or the things. I mean, like we said, we just want this to feel natural. We don't really want to make a TV show. It's a podcast. We just want to sit here and bullshit and talk about our thoughts and facilitate an environment for people to ask questions and try to learn together. But
I tell you, at the
is it
end
just a
of
fun place to camp?
No, at the end of the day, regardless of my cussing and drinking and whatever, I am a person that, struggles constantly with my faith and not just my faith, but what it means to have faith in 2018. Mm-hmm. And it's got to look different than what it meant to have faith in 1950. And I feel like people have changed drastically since 1950. And I already made this point, but I don't feel like, religion has...
I like what you said last time about thinking religion needs a total reformation.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I'll be honest, man. I don't struggle with my faith. It's like this. I called out to Jesus Christ at a young age, mm-hmm. and I felt like He answered, and I feel like I've had a relationship ever since. Now I've got this huge testimony that I'm not going to go into tonight, but where I was pretty going down some really, really bad roads. And that relationship just created this 180. But here's some weird things about my faith that I've noticed. First of all, I don't live my faith because of an afterlife. It's not about an afterlife. Like if saying the prayer gets you in heaven and that's all true, if you say the prayer you go to heaven, if you don't you go to hell, I'm good because I'm going to heaven because I've said the prayer technically, right? I don't believe in hell. I've explained that to you guys. I'm sure there's a lot of criticism around that by people, especially people that believe the Bible's the inerrant, infallible Word of God. I don't believe that it is. I believe there's truth in the Bible, but I also think it's made by man. So I think it's ordained by God, but written by man. So there is error. I can point some of them out. However, I don't struggle with my faith. The only thing I struggle with is intellectualizing my faith, intellectually understanding. Like I can tell you that I know God's real, and I know that I called out to Jesus and he answered me and that he saved me. And then I read the stories and I say, by the blood of Jesus, I'm saved. But I still struggle with the divinity of why did a man have to come down and die to forgive our sins? If God's omnipotent, why couldn't he just do that on his own? So the whole story and the divinity of all that is a little bit of a struggle with me, but that's the philosophical side of me over intellectual.
Ironically, that part of it
is easy for you.
Well, not easy to accept that it happened, but inside the context of in a world.
Why is it easy?
Happened.
Is it because of the fulfilled prophecies of the Old Testament?
Yeah.
Is it 'cause the only part that makes sense from an intellectual standpoint is God is love, and the ultimate love is laying down your life for everyone on the planet. So that part kind of makes sense, but past that, the whole divinity of like, why did he need to come down? Why did God choose to do it that way? I guess that's where I struggle.
See, and that's where I'm saying that I started my life on a path of understanding that story and that narrative to a point where it's not just a knowledge thing, there's a passion thing for God pursuing man, and it logically makes sense to me the way, even the introduction of sin in the first place, creating the darkness so that you can understand the light, all that kind of stuff. My problem now, which is just whatever it is believing whether God exists or not. It's not
so
about
the Jesus divinity part is not a struggle, but whether or not any of it's all real, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And and here's what I would say. I think there's two types of people in the world. Person one goes and eats a steak at an amazing restaurant, and they take a bite of it, and man, it is delicious, and it just tastes so good in their mouth, and they are vocal about it that, oh my gosh, this is the best piece of steak I've ever had, and they want to tell everyone about how incredible this steak was, and they just really enjoy that moment. Mm-hmm. And then the other person goes into that same restaurant, has the same steak, and they love it, it's fantastic, but they are then consumed with a desire to understand where that cut of beef came from, how it was aged, how it was seasoned, how it was prepared. What did the farmer feed the cow? What did the farmer put in the food that the cow ended up eating, and want to understand every piece of that pie so that they can appreciate it and maybe never duplicate, but that passion for understanding why this is so delicious. And there are many times in my life where I wish I could just eat the steak and enjoy it. But the reality is my life is the steak. And, you've seen it with me working. I can't just accept that some...
Well, they say philosophical people struggle with relationships and religion specifically, and politics as well. So you're just saying you're an over philosophical person, so it's hard for you to just be spoon-fed that as a kid, and then that makes you question it more. Look, I think it's smart. I think if you live in California, you should question why you're a Democrat. If you live in Alabama, you should question why you're a Republican. I think if you live in the South, you should question why you're a Christian. And if you live in the North or in a more liberal area or over metro area, you should question why you're not a Christian. I think that we should try to see past our biases and see past how we're psychologically conditioned and really dissect things and really tear apart our ideologies. That said, that's kind of where my faith comes from. It kind of goes back to that quote that I said last week on the episode by Karl Popper, where he talks about if you're not open to whether or not your beliefs exist, then you don't truly have them. Yeah. I was open to, okay, this may not be real, and felt like God still got a hold of me.
Yeah.
And so I guess that's where my faith comes from.
Well, and that's where that's the supernatural part of it. And so to make your point earlier about is this a religious podcast? And why the hell do we keep talking about religion? Well, it's because
It's a challenging philosophical.
well, it is part of how I think about everything is in context to,
Yeah.
because what religion and what the idea of God gives to me is a purpose. I used to say a relationship. The reality was
Purpose speaks to God to me, because what I've noticed is I listened to a great podcast a while back on depression.
Yeah.
And it talked about your most depressed people, and a lot of the people, like the reason suicides are so high in Hollywood is because pleasure does not seem to fix depression.
Right.
And most depressed people want more pleasure so that they can be circumstantially happier. And what I've noticed is our soul, in my opinion, is designed to where there's a deeper fulfillment from a sense of purpose versus pleasure. Our body's made to have pleasures all day long. Our body's made to have the yin and the yang balance where you're sad and happy, on and off all day long. But so trying to make your brain permanently happy just doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've noticed is that you're more fulfilled from a sense of purpose than you are from a sense of pleasure. And the
I
people
agree.
that seek the most to be pleasure filled seem to be the most depressed people. But I think that speaks to God, in my opinion. Like, I read science and I see God,
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, though. It is really seeking out what the why am I here question that everybody always says. I just buried a dog, that I had for 12, 13 years.
Yeah.
Did it just stop being? Because that seems to be what I would think, logically as a rational, person. I don't think as a child.
Well, the question is this body a shell? And
Yeah.
it's like the
Yeah.
TV analogy. Is the TV life, and when the TV dies, life's gone? Or is life cable, and
Yeah.
it's a signal to the TV, and when the TV dies, the signal's still there? I mean, that's
Yeah.
the ultimate
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
I think the signal's still there. Some
Yeah.
people think that when the TV dies, you're gone.
Yeah, so I think that I will continue my personal quest of trying to understand, why I'm here, and, in my grandest hopes and desires that involves an understanding of, my place inside of some master plan.
You know anything about the Higgs field theory? Physics? Higgs field theory?
Higgs boson something.
Higgs boson?
Yeah.
Particle?
Yeah.
So the Higgs field theory started back in the 60s, something Higgs, some professors, and they basically were trying to understand, particle physics and stuff like that, and where does matter come from, and how do these subatomic particles, how many up quarks and down quarks create the proton and electron and all this. And they basically said that they believe that everything, there's no empty space, and that maybe there's this Higgs particle that interacts with other subatomic particles to create matter and all this stuff, right? So then they created the Higgs boson and the Large Hadron Collider. Now, there was a skeptic side of me that says, well, if you theorize the Higgs particle for 60 years and then you go and create a brand new particle, it's easy by default to say that's the Higgs particle, right?
Right.
Because there was already that theory. But it did, this new particle they created, it did respond and react just like they predicted a Higgs would. And that's the Higgs boson particle. Now, the big question is, are there 100 Higgs boson particles or is there one? Do we create the only one? But that's an interesting concept when you start talking about an omnipresent God.
Yeah.
And the potential that there's a particle out there that is somewhat omnipresent, So that's what I'm saying, man. I study science. And I
Come
see
on,
God.
science.
I don't like wrapping God into the folds of science mystery, because we constantly prove what's going on with science mystery, and so it really makes Christians look dumb when we do that. So I'm not saying that I think the Higgs particle is the God particle, which there was a book written about that in the 90s. But so I don't know, man. I think it's an interesting topic.
It is. Brother, I am at my...
About time to end it. Yeah, we got to go to Waffle House, man.
Yes.
So we're going to go eat some awful waffle, man. We appreciate you guys tuning in. I apologize again for the Amber Alert crashing our show. I hope that kid got found. That way I won't feel as bad about the show going down. But so, man, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Like we said, we just want to facilitate an environment for open discussion that we can talk about whatever and really try to get to the bottom of it. So everybody that tuned in, we appreciate it. UNpartygarage, leave us some feedback on our Facebook page. Share us. I said this on my video earlier, Scott. I know a lot of people don't understand Facebook algorithms. I happen to know that space because of some of my online business and marketing experience. But that being said, when people like, comment, or react, or share, that really taps that algorithm and gives us presence to more people. So every time we get a like, there might be 50 more people that see that post. So if you like what we're doing and you believe in what we're doing and you want to help get the message out for us to facilitate an environment for open discussion, man, like, share, and comment on our stuff. Share it with your friends. Give us some reactions. Let us know what you want to see from us in a couple weeks. I'll let you close it out.
Deuces. Thank you very much for your time with us, and we'll try to be respectful of that. And also, we're just going to tell you what's on our mind, and you just kind of share it. And if you don't want to listen to it, don't listen to it. But if you do enjoy it, please tell somebody about it. That's our.
Hey, we're keeping it real. You watch anything else on current events and it's completely biased, man. At least we try to be as unbiased as possible. Appreciate you guys tuning in on Party Garage, and we're out.